Welcome back to Marvel Media Podcast. As you can tell, today's episode is a little different as, sadly, we are without Alex, and Josh and I are in person here together. And we're just going to do a quick review over Halloween Ends, which we're pretty fresh out of. I mean, it's maybe been an hour since that movie ended.
It's also a series that, ironically, I at least enjoy.
The trilogy.
Yeah, trilogy.
Yeah.
We went into the first Michael Myers, Halloween Returns, not knowing anything, really, about any slashers at all. Completely raw. And now I could say I'm genuinely a fan of the new Michael Myers series and the trilogy overall. So we're kind of just going to give a little quick review because Halloween Ends is getting a lot of hate. And also I just thought it'd be fun to do a little review. We're here in person anyways, so just a little quick video. Just some quick thoughts about the movie. I thought it was solid. I definitely think it was getting overhated. Blake and I couldn't stop ourselves from looking at TikTok reviews and comments and overall just the Rotten Tomatoes score of Halloween Ends, and it was all bad.
For some reason.
Very bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, as if this movie was like
Thor: Love and Thunder
level. Yes. And it's not. Like, just kind of quick, just like my overall reaction of just in the movie. Starts off, I feel like if I didn't have the TikTok influence, I don't think the beginning of the movie was as bad as I initially felt it was. It was just because I had that in the back of my mind of thinking, okay, this is supposed to be really bad. And they did some things different for this movie that I think was needed. I mean, there's a bunch of Michael Myers movies already out there, and this is the third one. It's kind of hard to actually make a good trilogy of a slasher genre movie. So they needed to do some twists with some characters, and I think it worked. I think it benefited for the ending, and it was fun. I mean, I went out of the movie overall enjoying this. I guess we kind of should do like not spoiler version right now of the movie, and then later do a spoiler in the same video here. But like just overall, just quick things like had good acting out of the series of it. I think Halloween Kills, that was probably the lowest in terms of acting wise and quality. But I don't know about you, I felt like this movie, the acting quality was still, it was good enough. It never got below that good enough mark.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's like for slashers, you're not going in, no one's winning an Oscar or anything off of a slasher anyways, but I mean, for the most part, I feel like it was good. I don't know the actor's name who played Corey, one of the guys in it. I felt like he was pretty solid.
He was very good.
Jamie Lee Curtis is Jamie Lee Curtis. I mean, everyone knows.
Was once again a badass in this movie.
Yes.
And she had one scene in it that was iconic again.
Yeah, she kills it every time that she's in these, but I mean, yeah, for the most part, like we said, the acting, it's a slasher, you're not expecting anything great, and it was definitely good enough to the point where it wasn't, you were never pulled out of it. Like at any point I was like, okay, this is trash, but for the most part, I mean, the acting was good. The story I respect, they kind of did it a little bit different than kind of what you would expect from, especially the finale of a trilogy.
Yeah.
They kind of went a different route, which I respected, because like we said, it's a slasher. The plot is never the takeaway of any of these movies, so I feel like overall they did some different things that I think they actually kind of hit with and kind of stuck the landing a little bit for this trilogy. If you want to say it goes back to the OG Halloween's, is kind of different, but overall, like we said, we got into this trilogy kind of going in blind for the first one, and I don't think the trilogy as a whole disappointed.
No,
I really don't.
Not at all. And I will say, like, judging from a trilogy aspect, I think it does have a good ending. And if you're judging it then from like all the OG classic, like it all has led to this moment, I can see some criticism for it, but overall, I mean, like, I'd say we left this movie, the only criticism that both of us had for sure was we felt like we didn't get enough Michael Myers time. Like you just needed like 5-10 minutes more screen time, that's it, to really make the movie, I think, just fully solid for us.
Right. Yeah.
But that's like our only takeaway from it. From all the negative feedback that's been getting, it's kind of crazy that that's the only bad thing we can say. And that's coming from us guys being very critical of this trilogy from each movie going into it.
Right. I mean, I think we all agree that Halloween Kills is the worst one of the trilogy,
Yeah.
obviously, but like honestly, Halloween Returns
Is a very, very good movie.
that one's good.
Yeah.
And this one, I wouldn't say it's not on the same level
No.
as Halloween Returns, but it's definitely way better than Halloween Kills.
Mm-hmm.
And just overall as a movie, I feel like we said, we walked away Michael Myers not having as much time as we'd like.
Yeah.
And maybe, you'd like to see a couple of those classic Michael Myers like kills of him just kind of, I mean, he's an iconic slasher, just a couple more of his iconic stuff to kind of round it out for, I mean, let's be real, for now, there'll be a reboot of the Halloween franchise in the future, but, with the whole Laurie Strode as, Jamie Lee Curtis, that whole thing, I feel like it's wrapped up at this point. We won't see those characters again, but, I mean, yeah, I felt like the trilogy, it actually had a really good ending. It stuck the landing.
And I think
decently.
The biggest part to an ending of something that big, which is like to compare franchises of like Luke Skywalker, to kind of compare Luke Skywalker of being a character that has returned to modern times like Jamie Lee Curtis Laurie has, it was a satisfying end for her character and all the characters in this movie, I felt like.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for the most part.
Which is a hard thing to do when we're talking about a slasher film here that is historically, majority of slashers have bad writing and don't care about the actual characters in the movie other than just, this is an evil character that is going to kill. But it definitely felt like they cared and they gave a damn about these characters in this movie, and it felt nice.
Right. I mean, besides, like we said, Michael could have got a little bit more love, but overall, I think the characters were pretty well done throughout, and I mean, I definitely think it's getting overhated right now.
For sure. And I think probably the only reason why Michael didn't get more time is maybe they were worried about pacing, as some bits were a little bit slower. And so maybe if you did add that, I don't know, but it was good. And even then, talking about pacing, I didn't feel like it was paced bad. No. It was paced well enough. I saw that was a big criticism of being like, oh, there's two halves to the movie. I did not really feel that way.
No, I don't feel like there
was a smooth transition of the halves in the movie, and I was pleasantly surprised by this film, and I think it was a good watch.
Right. I mean, yeah. Overall, like we said, it's getting overhated, and I think if you've watched the past two and you might be a little hesitant to see this from reviews, screw the reviews, go see it. And even if you haven't, seen the other ones, it's not like you have to technically see everything. Like, it kind of does a decent job of it. Has some kind of flashbacks in a sense, I guess. So it's not like anything you can't go in blind and see. But if you're a fan of the past two Halloweens, I don't think you're disappointed by the end of this trilogy at all.
No, and it felt consistent with it. While like Halloween Kills definitely felt like totally different in overall vibes of the movie. Some scenes were taken way less seriously than compared to Halloween Returns. Took itself very serious. While Halloween Kills was, there's some scenes that are like, okay, you got taken out of the film. But there was not a scene in this movie where we were like taken out. And we saw in a theater where there was only literally like 4 other people with us, but they were enjoying it too. Like, since it was less people, they're more vocal to their reactions, but they were enjoying as much as we were. So I don't think it's that crazy for us to say that this was a good movie. And especially if you liked this trilogy so far, this is a good ending.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't really have too much else to say, but I definitely think Halloween Ends was a good end to the Halloween franchise for now until it inevitably gets the reboot, that's gonna happen. But for the most part, I was pretty satisfied, and I'd say somewhere out of a 10, I'd probably give it somewhere in like a 6.5, 6.7, somewhere in that range.
I would agree around that. I think just me, personal bias now, of really watching some of these more slasher films recently and getting into it, I'd say almost even a 7 for this film. It was good. I enjoyed it. And for the fact that I even went in with negative feelings and I still came out enjoying it, that was a hard feat for this film.
True.
So good on it. And I feel like it bumps up to 7 just because of that.
That's fair.
Okay, so now that we kind of talked about our non-spoiler part of it, this is kind of where, let's dig into this. If you have seen the film already and you want to kind of have some interactions with us in the comments about the film, this is the spoiler section. Please actually give the film a chance. You might as well. there's not that many movies that have been coming out that actually worth seeing in theaters, and I think this is one that's worth seeing, especially if you've seen the previous two. And also, it's in October. Just get into the feeling of Halloween.
Right. Yeah. It's part of the vibe. It's just the vibe right now.
It is. And I think it's cool that they have been releasing them for Halloween time. It's just cool. I enjoy that little things that's going on. But spoiler-wise, some things. We talked about, in non-spoiler, of not enough Michael Myers time. Part of that being is the coolest things that we appreciate about Michael Myers, especially him in the slasher genre, is his brutality and his physical abilities, but mainly his uniqueness in how he does it.
Right.
Of how he will grab any, he loves his kitchen blade, but he will use anything to get the job done, and he'll get creative with that.
Right.
And they've shown that in the previous two films, but in this one, you don't see that at all for Michael Myers.
No, I mean...
For him.
Right, for him, his kills...
Yeah.
Thinking about it, I really can only think of him killing like 2 people.
2
off
to
the
3,
top of my head.
yeah. Which is really low compared to the previous 2 films. And so you might be seeing that and being like, okay, yeah, how are you liking that one, Michael Myers? But it made sense. I mean, just think about all the time we've got with Michael Myers. It's kind of more of a universe at this point that this film's ending. But I don't know. I liked... I could go on like a weird offset tangent, but I liked how Michael Myers was done in this film.
Right.
We just wish we got maybe 5 or 10 more minutes of him when he kind of comes back and just gets some crazy ass kills before he goes against Jamie Lee Curtis,
right,
in the final fight. Like maybe just some space of him coming back, because we see him come up and we don't see how he gets to Corey and Jamie Lee Curtis. So maybe if there's some space between that interaction.
Yeah, like his journey to the house or something like that.
Exactly.
And get some kills. But yeah, I definitely would appreciate... I mean, for the most part, I mean, obviously you saw the movie. For the most part, Corey is taking over the Michael Myers role, and we see his kills, but... And like his were pretty decent, I would say, for the most part.
It felt like a rookie going into it. He had his own style to it, but it still was like, at the time when they were teasing us, of like, oh, maybe they are setting up a new Michael Myers, which we both thought was cool. And I thought that was an interesting twist to do to the film, because it was like, oh, that makes sense why they would want to do that as a film franchise.
Right, so they could they could easily continue.
To just end it where he's actually not, I love that decision. That was dope. And it's like, no one replaces me, bitch. That's basically how the ending happened. They made sure Michael Myers killed him in the end.
Finished him off at the end, which was cool. But yeah, I mean, I would have loved to see Michael, get a little journey there, get to see him be classic Michael one more time. But for the most part, I mean, Corey was an interesting character for sure. I liked a lot of his story and like where it was going. It definitely, like we said, it was you wouldn't expect for the finale to focus on a new person and give him as much time as they gave him.
It's bold.
Which I think they did a really good job with it, and the writing was good, that it made sense. And like we talked about that kind of switch that some people didn't like, of like the kind of almost like a love story focusing on Corey and the granddaughter's relationship and then moving over. I feel like it was done like pretty smooth and seamlessly. Like I don't know why people are saying like it's 2 different things. Like it kind of all made sense and flowed. I felt like
Blake mentioned, we saw a lot of comments on TikTok acting like it was like split in halves. Like we mentioned before in a non-spoiler. Not once in the movie did I feel like this movie was split in a half that I can noticeably see the difference.
Right.
It was a smooth transition, and it's hard to do, I think, in my opinion. I mean, even in Game of Thrones, I can't think of top of the head, when a character goes to evil madness out of nowhere from being like that good character in the beginning, it's hard to do that. They couldn't pull it off, but in this film it did. Corey's madness made sense, and they paced it well for him. It wasn't like, oh, because even after he had his like vision with Michael Myers, he still was debating to himself, and it was an internal battle, which was cool about Jamie Lee Curtis when she had her badass chair scene,
the chair scene
saying
dope.
Like, there's 2 kind of evils, basically saying, I know you, bitch, and she's saying, I know you have an internal conflict, and that evil's coming out, and you're losing. And we've seen that not only previously before the interaction of him having his dates with the granddaughter, of wondering what's going on with him, and him even asking questions like, did Michael Myers like spare you, or did you escape?
Right.
Which he's wondering, am I actually chosen by Michael, or did I just survive, and is he an enemy to me? Which you see later in the end when they kind of fight and are battling for the evilness that you see. I kind of love that interaction there for that.
Yeah, that part was kind of cool. It was kind of interesting to take that they went on that with the whole like evil and like those two battling for the evil, I guess, or like who has that kind of power. But I mean, for the most part, yeah, Corey's whole like story arc and just plot flowed throughout this entire thing to the point where I was like, when we were both thinking like, oh, they're gonna continue, like I was not mad with it. I was like, I like this Corey character, and I like you can see his path of where he's becoming Michael, and I'm not mad at all if he is actually the new Michael and kind of takes over that mask and that evil, but obviously went a different route, which was really dope to see. And like how they ended that was cool, but I mean,
also the like relationship between Corey and the granddaughter made sense. It didn't just feel like, oh, they're just forcing that connection because it's the granddaughter, you know, and they're trying to have that parallel of, okay, Michael's still going after technically Jamie Lee Curtis's family. No, the relationship worked. Made sense. And like when the granddaughter got angry at Jamie Lee Curtis about like saying like she wanted to do her own thing, like, not at any point was I like, this is annoying, this is stupid. No, like their interactions, both sides, you're like, I can see both sides. So like the writing for a slasher film, that was good.
Pretty good actually.
That meant I felt like they gave a shit, and that's all I wanted. Right.
I mean, for the most part, I mean, there was a little bit for me personally, like there was a little bit on that whole battle between those two, like talking about it. I was like, a little bit of me was like, I mean, you met this guy like 2 days ago, basically. Like, what? We're just gonna throw everything away for this dude. But like, for the most part, like we said, for a slasher, it was really good writing and like shit just made sense, which was just nice. It flowed. It was definitely way better than Halloween Kills in terms of like the writing, and like stuff in Halloween Kills just didn't make sense at all. And in Ends it actually did, which was nice. But it is a little, to me, I was a little annoyed on the marketing of the movie because it was very heavily marketed of like, this is the final battle between these two.
So maybe that's probably why some people are hating on it.
It was a little like, like the last 10 to 15 minutes of the movie was that.
Yes.
For the most part, the entire movie had nothing to do with Michael and Laurie at all.
Yeah.
So then at the end, so like marketing wise, I was a little annoyed on like the, you know, the expectations going in. We're like, oh, we're gonna get a little bit more of that epic like battle between those two and a little bit more, but, or you know, see Michael like trying to get to Laurie and killing people on his path. But we didn't really get that. But I mean, I'm not, you know, if you take those away, I'm not at all disappointed. It's just the fact of seeing those trailers and then what it was, that was a little annoying to me. But besides that and Michael not having enough time, those are really my two complaints on that. Yeah,
which to some people that's a big deal, but like let's be real, guys. I mean, there has plenty of movies of it just being Michael Myers and Laurie going after each other.
Right.
Like there's so many films. Okay, so I think them going with something fresh but not so out of pocket that you can't recognize it of what you're watching was a great choice by them. It didn't feel like I've seen this before, which is hard to do for a slasher.
Not to mention, this is really like, it is the third of a trilogy, but also you count the other ones. This is like,
like technically almost what, the 14th, 15th? I don't even know, like the 16th film.
It's at least in double digits.
Confusing me count the Rob Zombie, but yeah. And I think one final note that I just really want to touch on that I thought was cool in the film was how they dealt with the powers of Michael Myers, because they've hinted in the previous films, especially in Halloween Returns, which is a big criticism of Halloween Kills, is like it doesn't push forward the trilogy of what was going to happen of the actual like background plot of the story, while Halloween Returns really sets things up. Like the interviews were asking like, you know, are you guys related? There's rumors of you guys being related. So like referencing Rob Zombie and fans of that, it's kind of just like what drives Michael Myers, because like they realized he had no connection with the mask, so it's not the mask that has like a power to it, and so they went through all that diving out like what is the power, and then in Halloween Ends they solidify it with it being just simply he's an evil son of a bitch, and when he does evil things, that's when he gets power.
Right.
And so at the end of Halloween Kills, with him just getting beat the fuck out of, he kind of gets pushed away in a bit in the end. It didn't make a little bit fluid there. That's why Halloween Kills is kind of like, I see the criticism there, but Halloween End kind of just makes it where he's kind of cast away, and like they kind of had a stalemate between the two.
Right.
And so he loses his powers, since it's been years at this point of him not doing anything. And that's why when Corey, a new evil, rises, a challenger basically, has almost not the same upbringing of technically Michael Myers, of the situation going, depending on how, if you look at OG Michael Myers or the Rob Zombie, but he has weird abusive mommy issues going on, but then a loving supporting dad. So he has two weird conflicting factors that has like stopped him from being evil. His dad with his supportness and just his love and being a good person, but not doing enough to stop the mom. And then as well as the triggering thing with him killing the kid to start the movie, by the way, which is an awesome way to start the movie.
That was fire. That
just
was
the
a
kid
nice
just getting dropped. All of us, I was thinking, okay, Michael Myers is gonna kill Corey probably.
Right. I was thinking Michael is just gonna come out and kill everybody, the family, the parents, like everything.
So them setting the tone, kind of like saying like, you aren't gonna know where this is going, was cool.
Yeah.
And so, but anyways, to end my tangent here, them just kind of building where Corey was gaining that evil strength, and they showed that he saw that in the eyes. And the reason why he survived Michael Myers was because he, at that point, his level of evilness was above Michael. That's why he survived the choking, and that's why Michael was stunned and let him go. And then also they constantly kept showing the detail, really split detail of that his hand healed and he got his healing abilities. But then as soon as Michael got that kill, when he dragged the guy in,
right,
it switched, and Michael kept stabbing, and he was more brutal and evil and solidified of like, this is who Michael is. Michael knew who he was, while Corey didn't at the time. It wasn't fully there yet. He lost it. And it kind of went back to that question that Corey asked the granddaughter, saying like, did you survive Michael Myers, or did he leave you alone?
Right.
Did he let you live? So I really thought that interaction was cool. It was also a different take on Michael Myers' powers than Rob Zombie's as well, and just overall what people were thinking and assuming. So bold choice again. I thought it was cool. Overall cool.
Yeah, it was like it was. I just overall I liked the movie and where they went with it. It was nice. For me, probably my final point of, I thought the scene with Laurie at the end was really dope, where she calls in the suicide, and then like that feeling of being like tense of like, what's about to happen here, and then you hear the gun go off and you're like, what? Like that feeling is like what I want to happen in those slasher like movies. Like, we don't need the jump scares and all. I mean, like, those are fine and all because it just fits the vibe, but like those feelings of good writing of like in the first one where we saw where Michael like goes into the house and there's a baby crying. And like as soon as you hear the baby crying, like you're just like, because of how they built him in the beginning of that movie, you're like, is he about to kill this baby? And he like walks over to the crib, and you're like, in the audience, you're like on the edge of your seat, like, what is about to happen? And then like you had that same thing in this one with that whole Laurie part at the end, and then her being a badass at the end of it, just opening the door. Did you really think I was about to kill myself and just start shooting? Like, that was dope, but like Halloween Kills had nothing really like that, where you were like...
The only part I could say for that is the beginning, just the firefighters.
That's true.
And I know that people reacted to that one.
That's true.
And that's a bold thing, because everyone loves firefighters. Isn't like, there's literally no controversy about being a firefighter at all. So then him just killing all these guys that are just pure innocent at heart, basically, in this film.
Right.
Yeah.
But it just, like, that feeling was just so well done in that movie and in the first one of this trilogy, that, like, that's the stuff that I really like to see. And then, obviously, love to see Michael being Michael. Like, it was dope to see towards the end him being a little bit more like himself, and, like, when he, like, just picked up the lady and choked her and just walked her across and, like, stabbed her and it went through, and she just stayed hanging there. Like, that was just cool to see Michael. Like, okay, he's still just this, like, monster, like, that's just huge and, like, powerful. And then, obviously, at the end of their battle, he was just literally stabbed through the hand, and he just rips his hand through the blade in order to like grab to try to choke her out as his like throat slit and stuff. Just like just so cool to see Michael being Michael at the end. But overall, I mean, this movie was also very well done.
Cool way to just end the battle between the two of like. I think the best part that I love about this new trilogy was they made Jamie Lee Curtis, allowed her to just be a badass.
Yeah.
Like, she was Michael Myers' equal in this film. And is the reason why I personally think, like, that's why she survived. She was his equal. No one met him like her.
Right.
And in this film, even though it was in the end, you still got that moment, the special fight between the two. I really didn't know with how they went with such a bold change to this film. I didn't know who was going to win. Sadly, Blake Scott spoiled that part.
Saw a spoiler of the end
on TikTok.
Saw Michael dying, so it was a little less, anticlimactic for me in that battle because I knew in the end of it, but Michael's not making out for sure.
But for me, when Blake said when he like grabs his hand out of the blade to choke her. That's when at me it switched saying, no shot. Like, is he about to win right now?
He's about to pull it out.
He's pulling his comeback story. He just solidified to get his mask on, everything, just killed the fake, phony Michael Myers and said, nah, I'm that bitch, man. And I thought it was like satisfying, especially Jamie Lee Curtis like lines of saying, like, I tried forgiving you. I tried moving on. I tried all these things. I'm just going to kill you. And it kind of makes sense of why, like, it adds to of like Michael Myers hasn't died in these past films because she hasn't accepted that part. So it kind of adds more to that lore content of why he survives, while in other slashers, it's just some stupid thing where they just come back, or they just Michael Myers, it feels genuine of like, I can accept that reasoning, to a degree. And then also them just absolutely like putting him in a shredder to end it.
That was
brutal.
That was pretty lit.
Yeah. Any other final notes for you for that?
Not really. I mean, overall, like we said, that movie, if you're not going to see it because of what you heard, I think definitely give it a shot. Go in and give it a shot, for sure.
Especially if you like the first one of the movie, Halloween Returns, and you like that kind of lore-setting background that it was providing. I think it hits this. I mean, Halloween Kills gives you basically the Michael Myers just killing a shit ton, if that's what you want. That's the one that gives you that. First one and third one gives the lore and a cool story. Yeah, overall, like I said, we're satisfied, and I definitely can see me watching this trilogy again in the future for Halloween time and enjoying it every time.
Yeah, no, I definitely am not, opposed to revisiting this trilogy for sure. Which, like we talked about, you don't really get a lot of trilogies anymore unless it's connected to like a Marvel or a DC.
Yeah.
And so for this trilogy, to have its time to shine and really to close out in a strong way, stronger than, probably people are giving it credit. I definitely think people are not realizing how well this was of a trilogy to end. I think, I would definitely revisit this. And so I think that's basically going to wrap this one up. Be sure to comment down below what your thoughts are, either if you're about to see it, you're going to see it, you already saw it, anything like that. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel as always, and we'll see you guys in the next one.